Story 1. Wicked Child. That night I dreamt I was walking barefoot down a dirt road. The sun was just starting to go down, and I thought it was odd that I couldn't hear any birds or the usual noises one would hear at that time of day. I could only hear the sound of my feet on the cool, damp earth. Suddenly I found myself standing in the middle of a marsh. I don't remember ever reaching the end of the trail. A gnat lands on my arm. I swat it away. Then another one appears, and another. Soon an army of gnats is swarming me. The buzzing just filled my ears and grows louder and louder until I can no longer bear it. I am now spinning in circles and swatting in every direction, desperately trying to escape their capture, and then a silence came. I opened my eyes to see they have vanished. It is then that I notice something in the water. It takes me a moment to realize it's a body. A woman face down in the murky water, pale, peeling skin, matted black hair coated in blood and leaves. The smell of rotting flesh fills my nostrils, and my eyes tear at the stench. I want to run, but I can't move. It's like I've been bolted to the ground. I hear buzzing again. It's the gnats. They've returned, but this time not for me. As they fly towards the water, the body bobs up and down slightly before slowly turning over to reveal a face that I recognize, Mrs. Daniels. She lives in a white brick house down the road surrounded by rose bushes and small wooden crosses. It's the only house in town that doesn't look old and slightly abandoned. She's the kind of woman who isn't very bright or very pretty, not particularly extraordinary in any way, but she's the pastor's wife, and in a small Christian town like this, that makes you royalty. One by one, the gnats begin to land on her body, covering her like a cloak. They fill her mouth, her ears, and burrow into her skin. On the other side of the water, the tall grass parts to reveal a car that's wrecked and damaged. Sis. Daniel's lifeless eyes slowly started to turn towards me. Her mouth, still filled with gnats, opens unnaturally wide, releasing a piercing scream. I quickly sat up in bed, my breathing heavy. I look at the clock. It's 7:18 a.m. I take in my surroundings. The sun has spilled underneath the lace curtains, giving the room a warm glow. There was silence except for the faint sound of sizzling bacon from the kitchen downstairs. Why would I have such a dark dream, and why was it about Mrs. Daniels of all people? I did not see her very often. I mostly saw her at Sunday service or occasionally around town, usually with her son, who I also don't see often with him being in elementary, and me starting 8th grade once the summer ends. I make my way out of bed. It was just a dream, I whispered to myself. It's not real. Breakfast is small and simple as always. 2 boiled eggs, 3 slices of bacon, and only a half cup of orange juice. Mother says that we should eat in small portions so as to avoid the sin of gluttony. She doesn't know that sometimes I walk past her cracked bedroom door to see her standing in front of the mirror, pinching her stomach and thighs. "Did you say your prayers last night?" she says before forking a piece of boiled egg into her mouth. "Yes, but I had the weirdest dream." She pauses. "What do you mean by weird?" I told her about the dream, about Mrs. Daniels, the body, the gnats, the smell of rotting flesh, the damaged car. Her expression is neutral, but there's a shift in her eyes that I can't name. After I'm done, there's a brief, heavy silence. "The devil has gotten into you." She's unnaturally still. I'm unsure of how to respond, so I say nothing. Only a child tempted by the devil would have a dream so horrid. "Mother, it was just a dream." God would not give such a demonic dream to a devout and faithful servant. Those dreams are for the wicked. Just then the doorbell rings. Mother pauses to regain her composure and then leaves to open the door. From the kitchen, I see a woman. I recognize her as someone from the church. She had obviously been crying, and I could sense she had bad news before she even spoke. Yesterday afternoon, Mrs. Daniels went out to pick up groceries for supper and didn't return. Her husband, Pastor Mike, called the police. They found her, but it was too late. Time slows, and I feel as if I've stepped outside my body. Everything is a blur, and I can only make out bits and pieces of the conversation. Driving home. Crash. Car skids off. Road tumbles down. Hill towards the marsh. Body crashes. Through front window. Lands in water. Great loss. Funeral. Saturday. Lord bless her soul. My dream. It came true. The marsh, the damaged car, Mrs. Daniels in the water, everything I dreamt actually happened. Mother says her goodbyes and condolences before shutting the door. She stands there, hand still on the doorknob. The next moment she's in the kitchen, towering over me, eyes bulging out of her head. "You evil, wicked child!" She grabs my hair and yanks me out of my seat and onto the floor. "I will not allow a witch to live under my roof." She's dragging me across the floor now. Wicked child, evil child, defiler, servant of Satan. She's dragging me towards the warrior room, a small linen closet with a painting of Jesus and Bible pages on the walls. Anytime I was wicked, which could be as simple as forgetting to pray over my food before eating, I was sent to the warrior room to read scripture and purify myself with the words of Christ. I'm screaming now. I tell her to stop. I tell her she's crazy. But to her, my anger is just proof that there's a demon inside of me that needs to get out. You will stay here until you have been freed from Satan's grasp. She slams the door shut before locking me in. I lay on the floor, a heartbeat in my head where my hair was grabbed. I don't cry. I've already shed many tears in this room over the years. I've spent hours on my knees looking up at the painting of my Saviour, asking if he could make my mother kind. He never answered. Images from the dream flash into my mind. While I was in bed dreaming about her, she was all alone, in a marsh, rotting. I had predicted her death, but what does this mean? I dream about death and then it happens. Will there be more dreams like this? Is this a blessing or a curse? I can't tell. I waited to see if Mother would open the door, but she never came. The floor is cold, but sleep eventually finds me and the torment continues. I can see a church house down the road. It's Pastor Mike's church, located at the edge of town. There are cornfields on both sides of the road that stretch for miles. I began walking. Minutes go by, and yet the church still remains down the road. I'm not getting any closer. A crow screeches from behind me. I turn to look, but I didn't see any birds. When I turn back around, the front door of the church is before me. The door slowly creaks open on its own. The church is empty except for an open casket on the other side of the room. As I walk closer, I see Mrs. Daniels' corpse. She lays there peacefully. Next to the casket is a stand with a large framed photo. It shows Mrs. Daniels in her front yard. She's smiling and soft curls frame her face. A big change from the bloody matted mess of hair I saw just a few nights ago. This must be her funeral. Just then, the back door of the church opens. I hesitate, afraid of what I'll see on the other side. Then slowly I walk through the door. I hear creaking noises from above and looked up to see a man tumbling over the railing of the balcony. I quickly moved away just in time. He hits the ground right where I was standing. A beer bottle rolls out of his hands. I stare at his face in horror. I know this man. It's Rodney, the town drunk, an overweight, middle-aged construction worker who still lives with his mother. I've seen him around town a few times, usually drunk, cursing like a sailor, and trying to convince people that the aliens are coming to kill us all. The church piano starts playing from inside. The sound grows louder and louder. I watch in terror as his blood pools around my feet. I woke up panting. I had another tragic dream. I sat there for a while staring at the wall. Eventually, fear faded away and was replaced by a new emotion, determination. What if I could stop it? Mrs. Daniels had already been dead when I had the dream about her. But if Rodney is supposed to die at the funeral, which hasn't happened yet, then maybe I could prevent it. A prickle of doubt creeps into my mind. Maybe this is hopeless. Maybe I am foolish to think I could save him. But damn it, I'm going to try. The whole town showed up to the funeral. It's not very often that someone dies here. I convinced Mother to let me come. I made up some excuse about how being in the house of God would help me repent of my sinful ways. Mother reluctantly agreed, but she sat next to me in the pew, side-eyeing me every few minutes. And whenever Pastor Mike read a Bible verse about the wicked, her eyes lingered on me a second too long. I just couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't belong in this church. Like the floor would open up and swallow me whole, dropping me into the pits of hell. I was sure that Mrs. Daniels' death wasn't my fault, but as I sit next to a mother who treats me as if I'm the Antichrist, I can't help but wonder if she is right. Maybe I am wicked, and Mrs. Daniels' death was all my fault. Rodney sat a few rows ahead of us next to his mother. I'm guessing she's the reason he even showed up, because she keeps nudging him every few minutes to keep him from falling asleep. I zoned out for most of the service. I didn't want to think about the dreams or Mrs. Daniels or my mother's cruelty. My main focus was saving Rodney's life. After the service was over, we remained in the church house for the reception. There were fold-out tables with food that people bought from home. I kept my eyes on Rodney, and Mother kept her eyes on me. It's like she was afraid that if she took her eyes off me for a second, I would burn the whole church down. Eventually, it became harder for her to stay close to me, since she had to interact with the people of the town and share condolences. I stood in the corner with a cup of cranberry juice. I wasn't actually drinking, but Rodney was. Hours had gone by, and he not only had too much wine, but he found a way to sneak in some cans of beer. He got more and more drunk as the night went on. I felt a tap on my shoulder. It's Sally May, a girl I used to go to middle school with before she graduated and went to high school. We never talked much since she's a bit older. She was trying to convince me to become a youth group leader here in the church. Something about it being our duty to raise little warriors for Christ. I couldn't exactly explain that I didn't have time to teach Sunday school because I was already dealing with the whole dreaming about dead people thing. So I just smiled and nodded. As she was speaking, I overheard nearby conversations about Mrs. Daniels. There was a lot of "she'll be missed" and "she was such a joy" going around. But the tightness in their smiles makes me question whether their words were genuine. Sally May starts to tell me the duties of a youth group leader as if I had already agreed to it. I briefly turned my head to look at Rodney, only to find that he was no longer standing where I last saw him. I frantically looked around the room. He was gone. My heart sank as I realized he could already be on the balcony. He could already be dead. I walked away from Sally May without explanation and made my way towards the stairs in the back of the church, which leads to the second floor. What if I'm too late? I reach the top of the stairs just as Rodney starts to tip over the edge of the balcony, a bottle in his hands. I dart across the room, stumbling over Sunday school desks and chairs. He's almost halfway over the edge when I grab onto his body. I pulled him with all of my might, but Rodney is a heavy man and I have the strength of a 13-year-old girl. My heels dig into the ground, but it's no use. He slips out of my hands. I stand there frozen as screams fill the air. I began to sob. I failed. I'm filled with a sense of dread as I realize that this ability is not a gift, but a curse. I turned around to leave the balcony to find my mother standing in the middle of the room. 3 weeks went by of me being locked in the warrior room. Mother had walked in as Rodney was falling over the balcony. No matter what I said, she was convinced I had pushed him off and killed him. I tried crying, screaming, pleading, banging on the door, begging her to let me out. But it didn't matter. I was no longer her daughter. I was a monster destined for hell. I was wicked. She placed 2 buckets for pooping and peeing in the room. There were no blankets or pillows or comfort of any sort. I spent every night on the cold, hard floor of that closet. Mother said fasting kills demons, so for the first 7 days I starved. She rarely opened the door, and when she did, she'd place a glass of water on the ground before slamming the door shut. Whenever I got too quiet, she'd bang on the door until she could hear me praying. The next 2 weeks she started feeding me again, but very little, and only twice a day at 8 a.m. and p.m. She'd leave a glass of water with an apple or a few boiled eggs, and if I got lucky, a bowl of soup. By the 3rd week, the buckets were filled to the brim with my waste and I became a shell of myself. I started to forget how life was outside these 4 walls. One night as I lay on the cold, hard floor, sleep found me and I began to dream. I'm standing in front of the bathroom door. I hear water running. Mother is taking a shower. Steam seeps from underneath the door, thick like fog. It surrounds me as I reach for the doorknob. Slowly, I opened the door and stepped inside. It's dark except for the moonlight shining through the window. The shower curtain opens abruptly on its own. Mother doesn't see me. She's naked and lathering herself with soap. She squeezes the soap bar too hard. It falls out of her hands and onto the shower floor. Mother accidentally steps on it and slips. It all happens so fast. She screams and tries to reach for the curtain to keep from falling, but she's not quick enough. She lands face first on the edge of the tub, bones crushing. I watch in silence as an unnatural amount of blood gushes from her face and fills the tub. On the wall next to the shower is a painting of the Virgin Mary that Mother keeps in her bathroom. In real life, it's a sad depiction of Mary with a tear streaming down her face, but in the dream she's smiling. The next morning, I waited patiently for the shower to turn on. As soon as I heard the water running, I began kicking the doorknob repeatedly. The house is old, so it doesn't take long for it to fall off like a chain being broken off a cage. Mother screams, and then there's a loud thud. I run out of the house and I don't look back. Story 2. Truth or dream? She leaned against the lonely tree on the hill, bathed in its shade, looking down at the skinny man laying on the ground. In profile, the shape of his face carried echoes of her family, though he wore stained jeans and a leather vest. Skylar rotated her jaw, trying to loosen the persistent ache, to no effect. "Sorry about your dad," she said. Okay. An edge to her voice. More irritation at her shitty opening than his response. He sighed, eyes closed against the sunlight. Your grandpa used to say, ask the questions you want, or for the answers you want, but don't expect them to line up. Shitty thing for a dad to say. What does yours say? She scowled. In a family of assholes, there's no prize for being the biggest. Cute. Here's more familial wisdom from your grandmother. A family has two stories, the truth and the dream. You can only hold one. She chewed on that. Shitty thing for a mom to say. What does... Mine says if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. What a quiet place the world would be. Some of the cruelest things I've heard were the subtext to something polite. How does her rule apply to that? It's not a rule. Right. She pushed off from the tree. Bark hooked at her black expensive blouse, heard it rip and didn't care. I got the hint. You don't want to talk. More like you don't want to hear. Way to be a prick to your niece on the day of her grandfather's funeral. Fred's eyes opened. His words made her shudder. He was my father. That was the wrong card to play. Shame painted red up her neck. She stretched her aching jaw, then loomed over him, arms crossed, sun at her back. He didn't squint against the light or look away, pupils like needles. It killed the biting remark in her throat, froze her in place. You look like Robert from this angle, he said. What does that mean? Do you want a specific answer or the real answer? Truth or the dream? This bullshit doesn't make you sound enlightened. It makes you an ass. He sat up and stood in one smooth motion, like a cat. She backed away. Now you sound like him. His eyes tracked her as he sidled to the tree. Be careful. She swallowed the acidic fear gurgling in back of her throat. Careful of what? Questions can kill the dream. Fuck your dream shit. He smiled. It was warm and genuine. She couldn't resist smiling back. Now you sound like me. Dad hates you, you know. Probably. It didn't bother him. Skylar realized she'd wanted it to. Your grandpa hated us both. That stung, and she didn't know why. He loved us. He loved you. Your dad got some of the splashback. Shitty thing for a son to say. Are we going to pretend what you're saying aren't shitty, or can we skip straight to accepting it? He grinned at the sky. My dad died today. Can't use that, she sniped. You obviously didn't care about him. His eyes snapped back to her with that dead predator gleam. I loved him. He didn't love us. You don't act like it. He rubbed his eyes. This game is why I stopped visiting. I don't play it. Robert does. He likes the dream. I prefer the truth. I won't be bullied into pretending, and y'all won't stop trying. So Skylar, my precious niece, kindly make a fucking choice so I know if we're kindred spirits or if I should head home. A range of responses popped into her head. Fuck you. You're an arrogant piece of shit. You're not the only one who matters. Heard them all in her dad's voice, none in her grandfather's. Other responses followed. I hope you can heal from this. You shouldn't speak ill of the dead. It's in the past. We should move on. Those sounded like her mother. It's hard, he said, voice soft. You feel it. Nurture from your parents fighting that unacknowledged nature. Closest I ever came to enlightenment was figuring out compatibility with someone is an alignment of core desires. To pursue the grit of truth or live the soft dream. Your parents both love to dream. Edie, my partner, she is tenacious. If something matters to her, she won't stop till she knows the truth. It's why I asked her to stay behind, but I miss her every minute apart. He took out his phone and pulled up some pictures. Skylar leaned in. Fred was a tall man, yet the woman towered over him with a high fade haircut and tattoos up her neck. She winked at the camera, tongue jutting from a wide grin. His smile was sheepish, genuine, and vulnerable. A tightness spread through her chest. She'd never seen her parents smile like that. She looks nice. She's rough at the edges, he said. That vulnerable smile cut his face even as he stared at the picture. I love everything about her, including the reality that if I brought her here, she'd have gotten into it with your parents. I can walk away. She never does. That's badass. She is through and through. He took the phone away, his face a stone mask. I left the funeral early. Walked 5 miles to get here. Never have before. Your dad wouldn't know, which means neither did you, so you followed me. Waited long enough so I'd think you had come straight from the service. Skylar was sweating, not from the heat. Every excuse that came to mind felt childish. Her mind scrambled, grabbed for anything and caught nothing, leaving her mouth hanging open. I came here for the funeral, not to make you feel shitty, he continued. I'm ready to go home, but if you followed me for something, you have right now to ask. I'm not going to spar with you anymore. Did that enough when he was my brother. He still is. No, he chose not to, just as he chose to be your dad. They're not mutually exclusive. They didn't have to be. He chose this. Skylar uncrossed her arms and stomped her foot, letting out a bestial growl that made her jaw click. However childish it must have looked, letting the frustration out felt good. Fuck off with this choices bullshit, it's a two-way street. That's right, he snapped. Anger transformed his face, twisting the muscles, shadows deepening like the bones themselves shifted. Trick of the light, she told herself as he growled at her. We both made our choices and we haven't bothered each other about it. Lines have been drawn in the sand and respected. Until you. He shoved a finger in her face. She slapped it away. Ask or leave. She chewed her lip. Waited, partly to punish him. He wouldn't leave. He'd feel guilty, ashamed. People put up with all kinds of shit because, by Skylar. He turned and marched down the hill. She waited. He reached the bottom of the hill and waited. He reached the street and waited. He never slowed, never looked back. She watched him march down the sidewalk. If he reached the intersection, she'd lose sight of him. So she sprinted, stumbling down the hill, pinwheeling her arms for balance, almost face-planted. A group of young men were playing frisbee in the opposite direction. She tried to outrun the embarrassment. Fred reached the intersection and crossed without slowing, headed towards the next hill and the dark tunnel burrowing through it. She paused long enough to take her shoes off, the modest heels hurting her ankles, then sprinted. Skylar wasn't in track, but the coach tried recruiting her every week. She was fast. Genetics. Her dad called it the gazelle genes. Her granddad had called it something else. Predator blood. He disappeared into the dark of the tunnel. It was a long walk to the other side. She reached the entrance a minute later, entering at a full sprint. Dark swallowed her. Damp assaulted her nose. The sudden chill disoriented her. She blinked away the fuzziness that crawled at the edge of her vision. The dark coalesced into shapes, outlines of objects beneath a satin sheet. She sneered. My brother and I grew up different. Mother taught us love, compassion. Father taught us survival. When we were children, 7 for me, 6 for him, we asked our parents if we were difficult babies. Mom said all babies are a challenge. Parents need time to themselves. I protected you by taking break for myself. Dad, though, never wanted kids but never shirked my duties either. Kept you fed and clean when your ma needed a break, but you'd get on my nerves. Need to let the dark out sometimes. I'd never hurt you, but put your faces in my mouth. Think about biting. Never would, but needed to let that side breathe. That's how I kept you safe. The silence between them stretched. Something scurried in the dark of the tunnel, smelled like a rat. Skylar said the only thing that came to mind. What the fuck? Fred stepped back. He repeated that a few times over the years. When we'd bring it up, Robert would say it like a joke. Can you believe I thought you said this? I said it for clarification. Why did you say this? He had the same answer. Fred's voice lowered, rolling through to tunnel. 'Cause it's true. Why? She tried to swallow, but her jaw hurt. Fear swelled in her chest. Why would he do that? Her uncle took another step back. Our family didn't run from the old country because we were persecuted or afraid. We came here because it would be easier hunting. Your great-great-grandfather had an appetite. In a place where different stories and foreign legends blended together, it was easy to hide in the open. But when bodies show up with bloody ruin for faces, they start with blaming the outsiders. He was too new, caught blame early. Mob justice left him beaten and hung in the deep woods before they had any evidence. His family fled, changed their names to escape any stigma. His wife taught their son to hide who he was, suppress his cravings. He did, for a while. Had his own family, a life, career. The urges grew, became harder to ignore, attacked his family. My grandfather had to put down his own father. Fred's laugh was more a scoff. In his turn, he taught our dad to accept the urges were there. Taste the water, he'd say, but don't drink deep. Bullshit. Skylar's voice echoed in the tunnel, sounding more sarcastic and mocking the deeper it traveled. He shrugged. They had pets, practiced with them. When things got really bad, they'd go camping, never brought food. Came back days later, well fed. She wanted to shake her head, scream, deny, but her jaw hurt from clenching and grinding her teeth. A habit from her dad. Genetic. It would be easy to dismiss this as the ravings an unwell family member. Go back to her life. Pretend everything was normal. But that was the thing. It had always felt like they were just pretending things were normal. When she didn't speak, he kept going. When the old man died, our dad decided the truth would come out on its own and he'd lean into it. Not saying it was the best decision, but it wasn't the worst. If you haven't figured this out, the best lesson I can pass to you is this. You can only do the best you can, but people will choose how they want to react. You can't control that. There is no perfect approach, no magic combination of words. Countless ways to tell the truth and many more ways to ignore it. But once it's out, however it came out, people will make their choice. Don't blame yourself too much if someone takes it bad. He stepped a little closer. In the dark, he smelled like leather and sweat. His hands gripped her shoulders. She stiffened. It won't be your fault. He hugged her. It was tentative, awkward, earnest. It shattered her heart. She wept softly into his shoulder. I don't want to be a face-eating monster. He laughed, relaxed. It was hard not to laugh with him, and she didn't try to resist it. We aren't. The urges don't make us who we are. How we handle them does. People choose to be monsters, and monsters choose to be people. It's not about denying. It's about accepting and finding ways to coexist amicably. Sometimes that part of you just wants to be seen, acknowledged. But if it's going to hurt someone, then it's our responsibility not to let it. It just is. We just are, and that's okay. They held each other in the dark tunnel for several minutes. The slap of approaching footsteps pulled them apart. A stranger grunted in surprise, only noticing the two of them standing there when they drew even. The person gasped and sprinted into the dark, the stink of their fear filling the space like acid. Fred watched them disappear around a bend. It gets easier, but only if you work at it. You can't work at it if you don't know it's there. He shrugged. I visited often when you were young. I tried to talk to you about it. Both your parents banned me from visiting after that. I always hoped to get a chance to try again, and that you'd listen if I did. He leaned against the opposite stone wall. I hope it's made a difference. 2 nights ago, Skylar said, unaware she was going to share until it started pouring out. I was with my boyfriend. We were, While he was sleeping, I kept having this urge. It made my jaw ache. Still does. He watched her. No judgment, no denial. I didn't. Talk to your parents, she scoffed. You know how that would go. I do. He took a pamphlet from his back pocket. Her grandfather smiled on the cover. Fred scratched a phone number on it. Call me anytime you need to talk. She took it, nodded thanks. When he turned to leave, the other pressure building in her chest erupted. Why did Grandpa have a closed casket? Stillness gripped his body, immediate and so perfect it seemed unnatural. She purged the unease that had been sitting in her bones for a week, like lancing a boil. Dad visited him. Grandpa passed the next day. Car accident, and he'd been drinking. Dad waited back at the house. Skylar couldn't keep the pleading whine from voice. Why would he stay at the house and let him drive drunk? Fred took a deep breath in and let it out slow. Good excuse for a closed casket. There it was. The word stuck in her mind. Excuse. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse from a dry throat. When Dad called to let us know, he told me Grandpa never wanted an open casket. Car accident was a good excuse. His fists clenched. Then his jaw, the split of his mouth drawing into a frown so deep it cut into his neck. Not a trick of the dark. When he released, it was all at once, features sliding back. When we learned to drive, Dad said a car accident is a good excuse for a closed casket. He saw the look on her face. Wasn't a warning about driving. The tunnel's cool air chilled the tear trails on her cheeks. What do I do? He sighed. Might not be something you have to worry about, but keep watch. Lock your door at night. And me? Women were always stronger in our family. You might be fine, but Edie and I go hunting in a couple of weeks. Yearly trip. You can come with. She knows? His smile was warm. She knows everything. I wasn't going to hide who I was. Truth instead of dream. He squeezed her shoulder. Do it right, and the truth can be the dream. Doesn't work the other way, no matter how much we want it. She hugged him. Hadn't planned to. It felt safer in the dark where no one could see. I regret that we don't see each other more. Always time to change that. When she stepped back, Skylar wiped her cheeks dry. I can't wait to meet Edie. She's gonna love you. They exited the tunnel and went their separate ways. She returned to the funeral home to find both her parents furious that she'd run off. Skylar weathered the lecture, took the comments about what it meant to be a good daughter without biting back, already thinking up excuses to get away in a couple weeks.